people of the World Wide Web. So it is Cypher Sigma. It's a Tuesday and it's a movie review, yes. So people who follow the channel will know, obviously, my name is Chris. This is my video movie channel. I also have a toy channel and I do video reviews on the weekends. I went to this Sunday night and I've decided, just because of the popularity, I wanted to get out a little bit quicker. So yes, this is the latest anime movie from the Demon Slayer franchise. This is Demon Slayer Kimetsu no Yaiba Infinite Castle. So anybody who doesn't know, this is essentially about a set of demon slayers. Essentially, this person who looks a bit like Michael Jackson, apologies, basically this demon, he has recruited 12 minions. He has a lower 6 and an upper 6. Most of them are now dead. We're in the upper 6. And essentially he wants to rule the world. He is after a demon who can basically step out into bright light, which is basically the main character. His sister has that ability, but she has been hidden away, taking a cure to resurrect her, and all the good guys that are left are essentially deployed themselves on this Infinity Castle to take out the bad guy. The bad guy has kind of been captured and pulled away, and then you have basically sets of these warriors littered around with all these demons attacking themselves again. This is the first of 3, so the last series, which is what this comprises of, 3 movies. So it's 2.5 hours, 2 hours and 35 minutes. Little bits as you watch the credits, but nothing at the very end of it. And I did really enjoy this movie. You can see it in IMAX. I have heard that's very spectacular as well. So we'll put up the spoiler warning if you've made it this far. If you've seen it, I will give you details about the story. I won't give you everything because I do like to keep some stuff, but obviously talking about the film and the story, unfortunately, it gives away stuff. So as I said, this movie starts off the main boss. He has kind of been put in a halt state. He is then retreated into what is his infinite castle. And then you have all the good guys split up into teams essentially of 2, except for Inosuke and Zenitsu, who are more or less by themselves. And basically this is everybody trying to make their way to the boss, and obviously because it's an infinity, you know, these weird puzzles where you see the stairs that go up and down. This is what this is. It is ever expanding. And you have the former leader of the good guys. His children have taken over. They're communicating through these crows that are kind of mapping out the world as we go along. But anyway, so we will get into this. So first off, we have the upper 2 Domo, which is where the kind of story takes place. There's 3 main stories list. So Domo is a guy, he killed one of the good guys who had butterfly in their hair. I'll use symbols because obviously some people watching this will have no idea who some people are. Sometimes you don't get the names, or I'm not pronouncing the names right, so apologies. Zenobu, if I pronounce the name, so her older sister was killed, Kane, and she's turned up, and basically this is her fighting upper 2. Quite a hard battle for her to comprehend, because obviously her sister's already been killed, and stuff like this, and she does well fighting him, and you get to see really their abilities and stuff like this. She's very much into poison and insects and stuff, whereas he's a very iced one. And they fight. Unfortunately, she succumbs to her wound, is basically devoured by the upper 2 Dumu, if I pronounce his name right, just as her subordinate turns up, and then you have a little bit of conflict with him. That's kind of more you see of that one. In between this, you have the teams working around trying to figure out what they do. Inosuke jumping around a bit, and then we go to Zenitsu. So he's the guy with the blonde hair, he has the lightning style. He was the last apprentice of this master, and him and another lad basically were in charge to take over their dojo. Zenitsu can only do lightning breathing stage 1. 2 to 6 is what this other guy is. That's why they were chosen to take over, to combine their abilities. Unfortunately, the older one took offense to this, turned into a demon, and here's the upper 6, and this is them 2 fighting. You have a bit of backstory learning about it. In the end, Zenitsu wins. I'm not going to explain here what, where, and why. but more or less be unconscious at the end, and you have some interactions with the smaller guards. Then this basically takes you up to Tanjiro and Jiro versus the upper three, Akazi, if I pronounce his name right. You would have seen him from Mugan Train. He is quite a formidable character. Tanjiro is basically starts off falling through the Infinite Kingdom. Jirai gets him. They are running around, fighting some demons, and then this is when the upper three turns up, and then they are fighting. In between this, Tanjiro basically develops a new set of eye powers, so to speak. You can see the translucent world. And essentially beheads Azuki. Apologies if I'm really butchering his names. But obviously the body is still alive. In between this is such a prominent bit of the final film of the final arc of this film. Is that essentially through it you get to learn his story. His story becomes quite prominent, and you learn that obviously his dad was very ill. He started to steal money to try and get his dad. Unfortunately, because he kept getting beaten and arrested, his dad kills himself. He then meets a fellow martial, because he's good with his hands. He meets a trained martial artist and then goes to become his disciple. Falls in love with his daughter, makes his life anew, and on the one day he goes back to visit his dad. His fiance and father-in-law potentially are killed. This causes him to go into a kind of frantic rage. He then goes off and kills, I think, 67 members of the clan who poisoned the water to kill him, to kill his future wife and father-in-law. And then in between this, he's met by Mugan on the way back. He's heard about this demon. This guy, Mugan is the guy who looks a bit like Michael Jackson, as people describe him. He unfortunately punches Azu through the face and then turns him into a demon. And learn, obviously, he becomes a skilled warrior, and over time he becomes the upper number three. As you learn all this, Akaza basically comes to a realization that all this had been forgot. He was getting all this power, all this stuff to basically fill the void that was left by the loss of him turning himself around. And in the end, even though his head has been decapitated, he kind of finishes himself. And he's laid to rest, leaving Tanjiro and Jiro basically in an unconscious state. It then kind of zooms out. You have the rest of the warriors running around, and then you still have upper four, upper two, upper one. So Kokoshino, which could be related to Tanjiro, but I still don't know. Domo, which is number two, who was attacking the girl, and then Hantetsuku, who basically creates the Infinite Kingdom, and then you have the warrior, and then this basically leads on to two more stories of basically, their task is to get them, and that's it. So it's a little bit complex if you don't know the world of Demon Slayer, or I've mucked up the names, do apologise. But what did I think? I really, really liked this film. I give it 7.5 out of 10. I did put an, as you've seen the thumbnail, is it better than Mugan Train? I'm conflicted. So, and you have to listen to, like, Mugan Train I thought was a great movie. Obviously it was an introduction to the world. We had never met these characters before. The district arc and the swordsmith arc was still great, but they mixed this dynamic up. This one, I felt that obviously not only was it the start to what is essentially probably going to be a great ending, and obviously to take the time and effort and to create this world. And as I say, like, when you have 2D animation and 3D animation, a lot of the world is 3D, especially Infinite Castle and stuff like that. This franchise, I would say, more or less from mine own, probably the best I've seen of integrating these two elements perfectly. Like, they feel like they belong. They don't feel like they take you out of there. The animation style, even when it goes from serious to kind of silly, it keeps you entertained. And I think this is something Demon Slayer has done, even with the beautiful artwork and the 2D. I think it just keeps it, that, animation wise, it is amazing, hands down, can't be beat. It very much as well, the the reality of how kind of real world, even though it's demon like, of if anybody has watched Dragon Ball Z, in Dragon Ball Z, when someone's weak, they have a beam, they recharge them. And this people, they get knocked unconscious, and that, and very like the humans, they get knocked unconscious and they are out for a period of the film. If they come out after it, they've not magically healed themselves. It's they're going to need months and months of recovery. So I'm interested in that quite a few of the characters have suffered quite injuries early on. Does that mean they're literally the next movie you're not going to see them because they're going to be trying to recover while some of the others take forefront, which will be interesting because Tanjiro is the main character more or less. Um, so I don't know. A backstory, I did, as I say, Akaza. I did really like his backstory. This kind of linked with the district art. So if you've seen the district art, you'll see like a lot of these demons actually weren't necessarily bad people. They just unfortunately were brought up in a world and had a lot of things not going for them, and decided to kind of be angry at the world. And then this kind of or events like Akaza had happened and kind of turned them more evil when they become a demon form, and kind of having this almost that Tanjiro seems to bring out the kind of goodness in people, a bit like Naruto does in Naruto Shippuden and Naruto himself, and stuff. I really did like. For me, the only thing, I can't remember if I rated this 7.5 out of 10, but the only thing for me, it's the pace and kind of the organization of this movie. Essentially, what this does is this does enough to show some of the characters, and obviously it's building stuff up to build to a bigger story. You have some smaller fights, and then you have this big fight, Tanjiro. The fight is over, and then you have a few people running along, and then you see like the uppers that are left, and then you kind of zoom out, and the king, and the Infinite Castle becomes even bigger, and it's kind of this daunting mountain that they people have to try. But coming off the back of the backstory, which has kind of humanized the character, Akaza, before he was in this Mugan train, he kills like one of the Hashiras. And is, I think worldwide hated for years until people would have known that person's story. And I think shifting in tone, we're going to defeat the bad guys, we're going to defeat the evil. You go in, you fight this, hated person that, probably people around the world absolutely despise. And then by the end of it, going, actually, he was actually a nice person, just he had a lot of bad luck, and obviously he had a lot of, trying to look after his dad, but then his dad kills himself because obviously he's stilled, and then obviously his fiance and father-in-law and everything that comes to that, he's just had really, really bad luck. And then, and you kind of humanize it, it kind of brings that nice feeling into it. But then they kind of go, oh, but then the next film's, but then they zoom out and go, all the bad guys are here, and it kind of, emotional wise, doesn't give you enough time, or doesn't give you enough to kind of build up that urge going forwards. I don't mean like I'm not interested in the next movie. I'm more focused about, it would have been really good if after Tanjiro was knocked out and stuff like this, they had actually had like several of the characters meeting up with the upper two, and then going, or a few fights, just, you starting to see the beginning of one or two fights and something like this, just to kind of show you what is going to come, and then have the Infinity Castle zoom out like it did, and then Muzan being like, you'll never get me, you're all going to die, blah, 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 blah. And then I think end would have been the perfect ending. And because of that, and just how they've restructured, because of the structure of the movie, I came out, I really enjoyed it. I was like, yeah, I do want to see more. But I think every other movie that I've kind of watched of theirs, by the end of it, I really wanted to know. I'd be like on the edge. I was like, yes, I really, really, want to go, and I didn't, and I felt like, that little bit of change. I think at the just moved the story, that last fight a little bit earlier, and have like a few more extra minutes of these. I think would have been, people would have come out there buzzing and go like, when is the next movie out? I have to go see this. Whereas I think it didn't quite click as much. Just my personal opinion. As I say, I rate it 7.5. Mugan, is it better than Mugen Train? Is it not? Animation wise, they are both amazing movies. Because it's a story, unless you've seen the previous movies, and yes, you won't connect this as much. Whereas with Mugen Train, it's very early on, so I don't think you can combine them. I probably would say Mugen Train is. I would say they're probably close. Maybe Mugan just because it's the introduction of them. But given time, this is the beginning of the final series, and I reckon that these movies are only going to amp up and get better. But have you seen Demon Slayer Infinite Castle? Let me know your thoughts and feelings in the comments below so we can carry on these discussions. I've been Cypher Signal Screen Time, and I'll definitely see you in the next one.